I'm Rachel Edidin.
And I'm Miles Stokes.
And we're the hosts of Rachel and Miles Explain the X-Men, a weekly podcast all about the ins, outs, and retcons of our favorite superhero soap opera.
We're also the hosts of Rachel and Miles Review the X-Men,
which you're watching right now,
where we talk about the X books that come out each week.
Now, as you may notice, the setting has changed yet again, as we are still in the process of moving in and setting up furniture in Castle Sexy Dracula, so you get this fancy blank wall as a backdrop. I don't think the video really quite does justice to what a terrible color it is, but you're going to have to trust us on this. So
is that
it's like khaki?
Is it puce? Could it be puce?
No, it's not puce. Puce is a different color.
Oh.
It's like it's like really generic kind of off khaki.
Okay. Off khaki.
Yeah, we're going to put up curtains or something.
That sounds good. Anyway, this is the week of August 12th, 2015. We have 3 X books for you, or rather 2 X books and 1 Secret Wars book, which close enough.
Let's dive in.
We'll start off today with Secret Wars number 5, written by Jonathan Hickman, drawn by Esad Ribic, and colored by Ive Swarcina. So, after some kind of big stuff that happened last issue, this is sort of a quieter follow-up to it. It's very contemplative. It's sort of a character study about Dr. Doom dealing with the fact that in the events of the miniseries, things are starting to get pretty weird and fall apart.
Speaking of Dr. Doom, can we take a minute to talk about the way Ribic draws him? Because I feel like that is the absolute star of this issue.
Yeah, totally. I mean, we talk sometimes about how it's hard to connote emotion with Cyclops because you can't see his eyes, and a lot of artists use that as a shortcut. With Doom, his whole freaking face is covered. He's got tiny little eye holes.
His eyes are not, but he's got his eyebrows aren't visible. He's got very limited expressiveness. And what Ribic does with positioning, with body language, with the, tiny slivers of his eyes that are visible, and with panel layout and his relationship to the background and to just, the visual structure of pages is phenomenal.
Yeah, absolutely. Esad Ribic, we really enjoyed his work on the run of Thor he did with Jason Aaron,
yes.
But this right here, he's the exact right artist for. So yeah, this issue, like I was saying, it's very much a character study, and we also get to see Doom show a lot of his own personality interacting with a character we haven't yet seen in this miniseries, that being the Molecule Man.
Right. Now, as you may recall, the Molecule Man was kind of the linchpin of the first 2 original old-school Secret Wars series, the one where Spider-Man taught the Beyonder to poop, and the one even back before that introduced the Beyonder as a character, and Doom as a god for the first time, actually.
Mm-hmm. And so, I gotta say, Secret Wars 1 and 2, they're kind of fun. Overall, I'm not a huge fan. I didn't read them until the show. But this makes me kind of nostalgic for them anyway. Seeing Owen Reese again, talking to an omnipotent Doom again, it's kind of a rad blast from the past.
This is a really different Owen Reese, and he's almost playing the Claw role in this.
Yeah, the sort of delusional, not even delusional, but a little bit out of touch with reality, a little bit not caring about reality. It's that same kind of disconnect, I agree.
The kind of jester, or, maybe a little bit more in touch with reality than anyone around him, but not quite sure how to play it. Man, Reese is a character who has never grabbed me, but he actually fascinates me here for the same reason that he did in Hickman's runs leading up to this, because he is unhinged in really compelling ways.
I was gonna ask you about that because I haven't read the Avengers run that leads up to this. And
you should.
Have.
It is so good. It's such amazingly intricate narrative clockwork.
Totally. But I guess, so for me, seeing the Molecule Man here, I knew he was involved, he would have to be, but it seems like that's sort of the culmination of a lot of story points that must have been a part of that Avengers run.
Well, less a culmination than a reflection back. He really actually pretty much summarizes his role in the lead-up series.
Okay.
And his role in the multiverse. He talks about that fairly explicitly with Doom in this issue. Again, Secret Wars has done a pretty good job of summarizing years of comics leading up to it. But if you have the chance, definitely go back and read those, especially if you're a fan of long-form plotting and really, really intricate narrative structure and really, really well-earned hammer drop reveals.
Mm-hmm. There are some hammers dropped here because, Thor.
Thors.
Lots of Thors.
Yeah.
So anyway, as a standalone issue, this one, it felt a little short. It felt like not a lot happened. But from what I can tell, if you're a trade waiter or if you just read Secret Wars as one complete work, this chapter is going to be vital narrative glue. So as a month-to-month, it's all right. As part of a larger story, I think it's pretty great.
I think it's good as a month-to-month even, actually. Because Secret Wars so far, it's been a lot of action, a lot of big universe-spanning stuff. This is a quiet moment as God really as the God of this world really struggles with his footing for the first time since creating it. So he finds himself questioning, trying to grasp onto what's going on. And in terms of the future of Battle Worlds, in terms of the future of the series, this to me feels more pivotal and more relevant than the explosions and deaths that have led up to it. This is, this is kind of Doom's Gethsemane moment. Next up is Star-Lord and Kitty Pryde #2, written by Sam Humphries, drawn by Alti Farmansaya, and colored by Jessica Colleen. And oh, dang, I like this series.
It is so much fun, you guys.
It is so fun. Farmansaya's art is so expressive and so engaging. I mean, this is, we joked that this is the, hey guys, Disney owns Marvel series of Secret Wars. And yeah, I'm not a huge Disney fan. I feel like you grow up in South Florida, you end up either really loving or just like violently mistrusting Disney, and I'm definitely in the second camp. But this is the everything I actually dig about Disney. It's the expressiveness, the cartoonishness, the, active over-the-top action and
the murder.
Emotional engagement of the murder, the numerous New Mutants catchphrase callouts. This kind of feels like the issue that was like written just for our listeners too.
I do want to talk about the New Mutants thing specifically because we see the New Mutoids, who are like robot versions of them in one of the Battle World domains, and they basically just exist to spout out versions of their catchphrases and then die. And it's kind of great.
Doug Ramsey built them, which is sort of a whole other level of like, I love evil Doug Ramsey when he's around. I the one from Excalibur, remember?
Mm-hmm, totally.
And I mean, I guess true friend Doug Ramsey is mostly just really sad. This one's kind of between them, and it's great.
Mm-hmm.
And man, this Kitty and this Peter Quill are a really fun dynamic, and I think in a lot of ways kind of an inversion of the typical gender balance you'd see in this series.
I was thinking the same thing, actually, yeah, because Peter's the sort of romantic with a heart of gold, and Kitty's the total hard ass who's having trouble getting, past her whatever it takes to get the job done feel, and that's fun.
Yeah, I mean, he is the one who is really pining for his version of Kitty Pryde, and this Kitty does not have a lot of patience for that. Like, there's dramatic tension and sparks flying, and it's kind of a classic, like, adventure romance. It feels like an Indiana Jones movie.
Romancing the Stone.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about that. And it's fun. It's so fun. It's so engaging, and it's so accessible and referential at the same time. I mentioned that I feel like this is sort of an issue that a lot of our listeners are going to dig because it's got a lot of subtle and not so subtle call-outs to like old New Mutants and Claremont catchphrases. Widget. Like,
Widget, oh gosh, oh golly, oh wow, Widget. It's a metal head with big bug eyes. He's great.
He's technically, the original Widget is Kate Pryde, right?
It's
From Age of
complicated.
Apocalypse?
They reference
Not
that
Age of Apocalypse,
here.
I mean Days of Future Past.
Right.
Yeah, it's fun on a lot of levels, and I think if you're not a huge X fan, you're not a huge continuity buff, it would be a good series to dive into just for the story and the art, because those are really charming. If you are, it's got those and a lot of Easter eggs for you. Highly, highly recommended.
Last, we have Years of Future Past, #4, written by Marguerite Bennett, drawn by Mike Norton, and colored by Foucault Placencia. So this series, it's actually getting kind of close to its end, which seems weird. It seems like Secret Wars is going to last forever, but I guess we're a fair bit through.
Yeah, they're mostly five-issue miniseries, right?
Mostly, yeah, I think so. So in this, we've seen some stuff go down very much, and this is really, it's very clear this is preparing for the end game, and it's also really showing us kind of what the series is about. I mean, we've seen it as a logical extension of Days of Future Past, of what that world would look like if it continued. We've seen it as sort of a take on the horrors of war and what it drives people to, and really what we see it become in this issue is essentially what happens to the people that survive this world, what it does to them inside. We've seen the theme of what you'll sacrifice to accomplish the goals that are important to you, who you'll betray to protect who you care about. And with this, it becomes, how far can you hang on to hope in a world where there is none? How far can you believe in a brighter tomorrow rather than just seeking oblivion because it feels like it'll be better?
X-Men being X-Men and this being a story about a mutant savior, I feel like we should specify that you're referring to common noun lowercase hope.
Yes, not Hope Summers, just Hope the concept. And so, we see characters who, their betrayals are revealed, but you can absolutely understand why they've done the things they've done. It all seems to fit. I'm being very vague here simply because I think the reveals are really worth reading about. But suffice to say, this book remains thematically consistent, and I like that each consecutive issue explores those themes in slightly greater nuance and detail.
So, here's a question, staying vague. What do you think of Magneto in this issue?
I think this is an effective logical extension of how Claremont wrote Magneto. I really
yeah.
believed the
Yeah.
way things went. It made sense to me. You know, Magneto's always been a gray character, and that's what's made him fascinating, and we totally see that here.
Some valid points.
Yeah, well, exactly. So I also want to talk a little about the art. We've talked about how Mike Norton
Yes.
he does art that really feels like an effective follow-up to Days of Future Past. That continues to be the case.
Oh man, can we talk about Placencia actually?
Yeah, the
Because
colors
Norton
are
is great. We've been talking about Norton a lot. The colors in this book are so spot on. And, you know, we've been talking a lot about art style, and I think one of the things we need to touch on more in the podcast and here is how much colors define eras. How much you can you know, how much a part of the nostalgia in this, and how much of the evocation of the original series comes from the colors, and how incredibly effective Placencia is at bridging the older palette and the more updated stuff in the exact same way that Norton is for the art. That's something that's the case in X-Men 92 as well, that I think is worth calling out. It's also just very, very technically good coloring. I complained a lot in a number of other series, but I remember this was an ongoing gripe with X Factor, the most recent series, that there was a very poor differentiation between, you know, foreground and background characters, that the coloring often got in the way of the storytelling. If you're looking for a book that, a counterexample of that, this is a book where the coloring does a really good job of supporting narrative emphasis from a technical standpoint, as well as what it does in terms of the mood and era.
Absolutely, and even little touches, like the fact that the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants who are in this, who are now working for the evil government, they have these little splotches of dirt and grime on their costumes, which I'm pretty sure were just the colorist doing what the colorist was doing. And that really gets across, I guess, how they still have their superhero costumes, but they're sort of tarnished, what they've kind of sacrificed, what they've given up of who they were for this kind of compromised existence.
You know what else those do? They evoke Zipatone.
They do evoke Zipatone. You should probably tell people what
so
Zipatone is.
And honestly, coloring in general, though, is the dot-based coloring in the old comics, but Zipatone, anywhere you see a bunch of little teeny tiny dots or dot gradients in older comics, that's something physical that was cut out and glued down on the comics. It's something that you see less and less of in the digital age, and you see falling out of style, but it was very, very much part of the kind of art that you'd be seeing in the original Days of Future Past. And while this isn't the same thing, it's again one of those touches that, while it's modern, while it fits with the current style and the current, you know, printing medium of the comic, because again, you can't really do that as well in a glossy book, which this is. It just barely evokes that in ways that I think were pretty pleasing and pretty cool, whether it was intentional or not.
So those are our books this week. Rachel, which one's our favorite?
Our pick of the week is absolutely Star-Lord and Kitty Pryde #2. It is accessible to newcomers, it's got a lot for old fans, and in general, it is just egregiously delightful. With that in mind, what is our panel of this week, Miles?
So my panel of the week is actually a series of panels. Once again, we're cheating, because we can do that.
This is our domain, damn it.
That's right. So I really like this escalating, almost like romantic comedy kind of argument series with Peter Quill and Kitty Pryde just getting more and more exasperated with each other.
Yes.
I don't know. I've mentioned before, I'm a fan of good comic timing and comics panels, and this really has it. Just that approach gradually with increasing emotion. It's a beautiful thing.
Well, it's a great spotlight of Firm and Saya's faces, too, which are just so fantastic.
So expressive. Yeah.
And speaking of expressive faces, I'm actually going to, and bending our own rules, I'm going to pull in a second panel of the week.
Oh, my God.
Right? We've done this before.
I act surprised every time. I'm like a goldfish.
We talked about this ahead of time.
Well, anyway,
I mentioned before how incredibly expressive Esad Ribic's Dr. Doom is, and I want to pull a panel that highlights that, because it's so good and it's so cool and it's such a beautiful, beautiful panel from such a beautiful page.
Yeah, I mean, doing that much with body language and also lighting, which I think really helps the body language, like, good work, art team. Keep doing what you're doing. So that's it for this week. Thanks for watching.
If you like what you've seen here, please check out our podcast, Rachel and Miles Explain the X-Men. New episodes go up every Sunday at rachelandmiles.com, also on iTunes and Stitcher. What have we got for them this week, Miles?
This week we have horrible tragedy in X Factor. Terrible things going on for Angel, Cyclops, and Marvel Girl, and Beast and Iceman having to deal with Boom Boom, which is terrible but also hilarious.
Yeah, X Factor totally can't have nice things.
Oh no, seldom and certainly not now.
That podcast, these video reviews, and everything at rachelandmiles.com are brought to you by our rad Patreon subscribers. We are an entirely ad-free and listener-supported project, and if you would like to join the fine folks who make all of this possible and make it possible for us to do it as a job, you can do that at the link either above or below this video, depending on where you're watching it.
And so we will see you next time in Battle World, again, for a couple more months. But it's good stuff!
So ideally, we'll actually have a permanent space for this by next week. Like, I'll have an office and a desk and stuff. That would be exciting.
Otherwise, we can just keep showing the viewers the various walls of our new house.
Woohoo. I showed them some shelves last time.
Shelves are kind of like walls.
Yeah, we're going to have to just keep finding new rooms. We're just going to go through all the rooms one at a time.
What about the murder basement? We can do
We're
that.
not recording in the murder basement.
Oh,
It doesn't have a ceiling.
true.
And there might be corpses.